want to tell you about this book. This book, because Lee said it's called It's the Christmas. Actually, it's called This Is the Christmas. This book is so precious to me because Lee Oswald defaced it.
Say again?
Yeah. I'm serious. What happened? We were looking at our little sins. I said, what's the worst thing you did when you're in high school? I said, did you ever steal anything? I said, I did. I said, I stole comic books. She said, I did too. I said, I know that guy who was running the place. I know he saw me. Now I know as an adult, you know, he had to see me. He could have destroyed my life. But you let this cute little girl go ahead and take some comic books, you know. He took 3 or 4 of them. I'm so embarrassed. It was my sin, you know. And Lee had done the same, and he felt just, he also had a very strong conscience, very high moral standards, and everything. I mean, when I knew he didn't smoke, he didn't drink, he didn't swear, and he stopped all that when he was in the Marines, so he could become a CIA agent without any kind of hindrance or encumbrances. And any time you've ever heard about him drinking, if he nursed something, he would ended up in the flowers or something, you know, people didn't know, but he wasn't drinking it. He never, and when they say he was vomiting, well, he would drink anything, but he'd vomit on purpose to make it look like he was drunk. But he wasn't. So he had all these things that he did. Now here, he's saying to me, so I said, he said, there's something else I did. I defaced a book. And we love books, so I mean, it was like horrible, horrible. What do you mean? He said, well, he said, my mom brought home a book called It's the Christmas. It turns out it was called This Is the Christmas. And he said, she read it to us, and I remember not liking the story very much, so I went and later I took the book out myself and went through it. And he said, I got so angry at this book that it's full of markings that Lee put in it. He crossed this out, and he crossed that out, and he circled this, and I'll tell you why he did. He was very, very upset with what was in this book, and it changed his life. It made him want to be nice to people who were oppressed and who had troubles. Because this is a book about a little blind boy who was found as an infant after a big storm, and he was a gypsy boy, and he was dark-skinned, a dark-skinned boy. I'm going to read a little bit of this. It's a very small book, so I can read a lot of it to you, okay? Okay, on a rock jutting high over the river, a young child was found crying pitifully. He was swarthy, dark-skinned child. Whatever clothes he might have worn, the storm had stripped from him. He was too young to do more than babble. He was of the Sigani, the gypsies. This is a story that was written about a Christmas in Serbia, far, far away. Lee always wanted to go all different kinds of places, but this book, he was about 10 years old when he read this. Now, this book happens to be stamped November 23, 1945, so we know that, you know, when this book was in the library there. I want to tell you, I went to the Dallas Library a few years ago, and I found the book, and for $25 I got it. They sold it to me. Okay, that's how I got it. So they took this all out, but you can see how old it was and when it came and everything. Called This Is the Christmas. Now, how important this book was in forming Lee Oswald's life, because the mother Judyth, she had sons, and because this was a gypsy boy, he was not allowed to go to church. So it was so sad at Christmas, especially. It was terrible. Just terrible. He was despised. He says he was blind. He could not see, by the way. One person showed him how to make a reed, and he made a flute for himself. He had to live with the sheep. They wouldn't let him live in the house because he was a marked, dark boy. And remember, this is the Lee Oswald who sat on the black side when he was had to go to court and pay his $10 fine. He sits with the blacks on the black side with them instead of with the whites. And I'm talking about this is a man from New Orleans where they had a lot of racial prejudice and things going on. So you need to know the motivation here. It's in this book, and that's what's so lovely about it, and he told me about it. Okay, here he's crossed this out. Big cross. What's going on? It says here that he says, do you know what it means to be cast out from all the festivals, all the merrymaking, to be forbidden entrance to the church? One of the reasons that Lee became an agnostic and didn't want church or like that is because this little black boy was not allowed into the Christmas, into the churches or during Christmas or anything, because he was dark-skinned gypsy. And here he's a blind boy. So this boy wanted so much how often Marco heard it says, he would pipe the, all right, here we go, for Christmas. To lie in the cold and dark of the Holy Eve, that's his Christmas Eve, just before the midnight service, and to hear Mother Jonovic waking the rest of the children. Come Vuk, come Ivo, come Draga. We have haste to make, but never come Marco. To hear the bustling, the calling of one to another in the cottage, and to know he was the outcast, forbidden to have a part in the Christ service. And here's the crossed out to lead to face the book. He crossed this out. He was so upset at what he had heard or read. So this priest, he learns from the priest that that Christ was once a baby, and he learned some things about Christ. He wanted him so much and he couldn't see him. And so, short of a miracle, my son, he said, the priest said, you can never enter the church. It's the mark you must bear, the mark of the outcast. Crossed out, okay. Marco drew in his breath. Slowly he let it out with words. Take my hand, put it on that place where my body bears the mark, and I will cut it out. So this little boy wanted so much to be able to enter the church that he said, wherever it is the mark is, cut it out of my body. Okay? And so it lies not upon your body, my son, but on your soul, was the answer. Can you imagine? So there they are, the Christ is born. He hears them going off again, as usual, and he has a little sheep with a broken leg, and he's staying behind. He hears them all going off. His heart is breaking, as usual. He's left out of everything. So he hears again, come Vuk, come Ivo, come Draga, we must haste make. If only she might call one more name, call it joyously. Come, Marco. But that would never be short of a miracle. Well, here's what happened. Remember, this is a Serbian folk tale. Okay? So, the bells were ringing, and the blind boy is sitting there with this little sheep in this shed, and it's cold, and he's all alone. He said, if only I could be as other boys, welcome at the table, called to church by the bell, having a share in worship in the Christ Eve. The bell stopped ringing. Marco felt something. He heard feet rustling. A strange hand was placed on his shoulder. And Marco spoke in wonder, can words reach heaven faster than a bird flies? Some words can. And then he said, did the big king, that's God, Christ or whatever, send you to be my sponsor? He said, now listen, here's what happened. He said, why am I blind? He said, are you really blind? He says, some boy. And he says, look at the music you can play, and look how you help the sheep, and look how the animals love you, and so on. And he said, what would you like? He said, if only I could feel the face or see the face of the small king, that is, of the Christ child. And he says, put your hand on my face. Okay? So, he did. He felt traced the forehead, felt the wide set eyes, the rounded cheek, the slender, clear-cut nose, the strong molded chin. And then he said, I will keep the music. I will be a singer for the people of Serbia. And as he is touching the face of the Christ, the people come out of church. Okay? And what do they see? They see a light, a dazzling light filling the sky. It's shown over the whole valley. It comes from here, they said. No, it comes from there. Hands pointed everywhere. The priest who had shepherded them through the doorway of the church pointed to Janovic's farm. It's coming from there. He led the way. When they came to the farmyard, they found a small shed bathed in light. No word was spoken. Massed around the low doorway they stood, unbelieving what their eyes told them. For they could see within, kneeling on the straw, the blind boy, and kneeling with him was a small ewe lamb and the Christ. A circle of light shone about his head and made such brightness as the valley folk had never seen upon the earth. All bent their heads as in church worship. The old priest spoke in low humility. The miracle, it is we who have been blind. It is upon our heads the curse comes to rest. And picking up his robe, he knelt on the fringe of the straw, and they knelt with him, making no stir in the night, and the blind boy was piping on his grave. Now, this is the story that Lee said changed his life, because he said, I cannot ever, and he's got it marked, and I'm going to send it around so all of you can look at it.